Sam here, and we're going to be doing a weekly wrap up as we usually do on Fridays. We're going to be looking at the indexes, we're going to be looking at bonds, volatility, and then stick around till the end because I'll show you 3 stocks that came up today in session that I think are setting up for some pullback buys, or maybe even just some straight up buys as soon as next week. Also, I'll have a continuation for you from last week's video. So last week's video, for those of you that caught that one, I shared my MAG7 index with you. Recently this week, I actually went ahead and updated all the values, all the prices, to account for all the new prices that these stocks have moved to. So we'll take a look at that as well towards the later part of this video, and I'll also be sure to share it with you in the description of the video below. So getting this video out about 3 hours before the market closes, making a pretty safe bet that nothing will change, that will radically change what we're going to talk about, and I think that's a pretty safe bet. So let's go ahead and dive into where we usually start, which is SPY, and then we'll go to the rest of the indexes, and then I'll show you some of the individual stock tickers that came up in the session today. So SPY here, the weekly chart remains max bull. The daily remains max bull, absolutely no changes whatsoever. We're now trading above this level of friction from the last 3 weeks. We are now set to close above that. Very, very strong. Not anywhere near 3 ATR, not even 3 ATR on the daily chart, so all of that looks fine. Is this long in the tooth? It certainly feels that way, but the market is running on doubt. I think this market has a full tank of doubt that it can run on, if you get what I'm saying. The more that people doubt it, the more that it will go higher. So for now, from the inside out on these signals on SPY, I see absolutely no issues whatsoever, and I would continue to trade it that way until something changes. So let's move on to the QQQ. It's going to be more of the same. One of these weeks, I may be able to bring you something brand new and different that will blow your mind, blow your socks off. But today is not that day. Today we're going to give you more of what you already know. So here on the QQQ, same thing, right? Max bull, nothing to be upset about there. I don't really see any major issues developing until the weekly chart starts to get a histogram kind of that looks like that. You see how this one here on the weekly chart on the left kind of gives you that frowny face to the top side there, a little bit of a frown, upside down U, and you don't really have that right now, right? You're still kind of stair-stepping higher, so it wouldn't be until you get a blue histogram bar against the grain that I would even consider something could happen. But for now, it's another max bull chart on every time frame, at least on the weekly and the daily. So party on, Wayne, on QQQ as well. I don't see any issues there. Let's go to the IWM. So if you recall last week's video, we had reviewed pretty heavily the signal for this week was the MAG7 index, and you certainly got a few big days inside of that where you had Meta trying to get to 800 and pretty big moves in some of these stocks, especially early on in the week. And I still think that's going to be the best signal going forward. I do think it's worth reviewing the IWM here more than usual, just because it is trying to do something. Now with the IWM here, it is a very spiky kind of chart, meaning that it will kind of have big moves up and then give it all back and then kind of go back to doing nothing, whereas the SPY is just like this beautiful perpetual uptrend. So I don't have a ton of interest in trading the IWM. When I see days like 2-3 days ago here when you have this huge day, I don't even feel left out at all by that. This isn't something that I'm going to trade, but if you want the rest of the market to appear healthy, then you definitely want to see this trading well. And as of right now, this is probably the biggest change week to week is the IWM. Last week it was a little bit it was still bullish, but more neutrally bullish. At this point, it's gone max bull as well. So I don't see any issues there. For those of you that do like to play this kind of stuff, it is in play at the moment. I won't play it, but don't let me stop you. Let's go to HYG. We look at HYG because it is high yield bonds. This is the junk bonds. And essentially we look at it as a metric for risk on or risk off. So if the market is going to continue partying, then all of the bartender is HYG, and as long as the bartender's pouring them drinks, the S&P can continue to party. And here, really, the only thing I'm checking for is just to see the absolute value of price. As long as it's above 80, it's very bullish. It's bullish all the way down to 79. So being above 80 is very bullish. Also, you can see it's a double max bull chart as well. So the bartender here for the market, HYG, the credit markets, is pouring them shots. And I don't see any issues there whatsoever. Let's go to the VIX. The VIX is so low here. I mean, under 15 is just insane, but I guess we are trading at all-time highs. No, nothing to see here on the VIX. A couple weeks ago you had this little blip higher, but very, very quickly it was given all back and a new low was made. So no major signals here on the VIX. It is extraordinarily at low prices. You have an extreme reading there. You have an extreme reading here. These are uncommon signals. So, I wouldn't get overly comfortable. But there's no signal that this is going to spring forward. So this kind of reminds me of like when I go on a hike and sometimes I'll see a sign that says there's snakes. But I've never actually, well, I guess one time I did see a pretty big snake. But most of the time I don't actually see any snakes, but the sign says there are snakes. Whereas if there was no sign, I would be a little bit more cavalier about walking around all the different places. That's kind of what the VIX is saying here, right? This is saying that there are snakes in the grass, but the probability that you run into one without a signal is extraordinarily low. So nothing here on the VIX quite just yet. Just the fact that it is deeply, deeply oversold doesn't necessarily imply that it is a signal unto itself. And then what else is there even to look at? Actually, you know what? Let me share this cheat sheet with you that I think is pretty helpful. So this is a very complex math that I'm about to share with you. I think maybe only 1 in a billion people will be able to follow along with this level of complexity. So prepare yourself. So this is the cheat sheet for the market. And going forward, I highly suggest that you use it. So yields up or yields down, stocks are going to be green. Dollar up or dollar down, stocks are going to be green. Data good or data bad, stocks are going to be green. Crypto up or crypto down, stocks are going to be green. Good news, bad news, stocks are going to be green. If you understood that, you're one in a billion people that does. So let's not overcomplicate matters. I think that that is actually, as silly as that little endeavor we just took was, it actually does encapsulate this market perfectly. So I've been telling the folks in the room, hey, the game is pretty much over. The market only goes up. It's either up, well, back in the day, back in my day, the market used to go up, down, or sideways. And now in 2025, current year, market only goes up or it goes sideways waiting to go up. So I know that may hit your ear a little bit weird. I can assure you that it hits my ear a bit weird, and it's coming out of my own head. But it is just the reality of where we are. So that's why these videos, at least on my end on Fridays, they used to be 20, 30 minutes. I'm trying to get them down to 10, 12 minutes. And I think that we're not missing a single beat by doing so. Let's move over to the MAG7 index. This is the new one that I'm going to share with you. The idea is exactly the same. It's just the formula has been updated to show the current prices of everything. And again, if you want it, it will be in the video description below. So make sure you update yours when you have a chance. And unlike last week, where this was giving a daily squeeze, we no longer have any daily squeezes here. But we do have some intraday squeezes. We do have an hourly squeeze, a 30-minute, a 15, and a 5. So basically, this is going to lead me to say the exact same thing that I told you last week. Going into next week, the only thing that I particularly want to buy that is aligned is big tech. It doesn't necessarily have to be the MAG7, but it has to, in my book, it has to be big tech. That means I'm going to miss moves in IWM, and I'm going to miss moves in a bunch of these small stocks that are short squeezing. That doesn't bother me at all. If I'm trying to align as much as I can in terms of probabilities and edge, this is where the edge and the probabilities align. So again, I'll include this chart in the description below so you can go ahead and update it on your end. And then let's look at 3 stocks that came up today in session that I think are setting up as plays on this idea going into next week. Of the 3, the one that I'm bidding on is Oracle. Now, with Oracle here, I may not get an entry because I'm bidding lower than where the price is currently. So that is something that I may have to come in and adjust as early as next week, because the probability that this market will give me a pullback is extraordinarily low. So I may have to just come in on Monday and chase. But I did like the way that this is setting up. This is a strong chart. Good squeeze, 4-hour squeeze. I like a combination of daily and 4-hour. So out of the 3 that I'm about to show you, Oracle is number 1. That's the one that I'm actually bidding on. Another one that I think is also very serviceable here is going to be Net. And yet again, it's another one that has a 2-day squeeze in this case, near buy zone, right? So it's not overly extended like a lot of things. Even up $6-7 today, it's not actually overly extended, which is a good thing. It's still within the confines of the cloud. And then the last one is going to be TSM. And these are just ones that came up on the scan. So really the catch-all for all of this stuff is usually to buy the S&P or the QQQ. Now, because the MAG7 daily squeeze fired this week, which I showed you that squeeze last week when it was in play, and now it's fired long this week, and because of the potential that they could rotate, or at least attempt to rotate into the IWM and do a short squeeze, then I think that maybe going with SPY as kind of a catch-all makes sense, because if they decide to leave tech behind and just push the IWM 5% next week, then the QQQ won't really play well. In the event that they decide to dump the IWM and just push tech all week, then obviously IWM won't do well. But the sweet spot in the middle between both of those ideas is the SPX or the SPY, right? Because if they push tech, SPY goes up. If they leave tech flat, but they push everything else, SPY goes up. So all roads kind of lead me back to SPY. But to round out the third idea here, it's going to be TSM. And again, this one is in a buy zone with a nice daily squeeze and a good score. So all of these are contingent on the indexes continuing to push higher next week. The only way that I would see an issue develop is if we close below last week's low. So I do want to kind of caveat this because I've made the market seem extraordinarily easy, but just so you have a kind of a trap door underneath the idea. If the market trades below last week's low, all of the ideas are invalid to the long side. But as long as we're holding last week's low, or frankly, this week's low, as long as we're holding this week's low, then I think all of these ideas are completely valid to the upside. So we are continuing to run the $7 trial at simplertrading.com. So $7 for a month, you can't beat that. If you've gotten value from my videos or the videos of any of the other traders that present to you here on YouTube, whether it's Henry, Danielle, John, or anyone else that presents to you here, Taylor, feel free to come by simplertrading.com. Check us out. It's $7 for 30 days. And like I told you last week, there's a very good chance you might like it and you'll stick around. And if you don't like it, then your next cup of coffee is on me. Just send me the bill. All right, guys, that's my time. So thanks as always. See you for the next one. Cheers.